I looked into his background and he just, oh, there you go, I'm doing my intro.
What are you saying? I'm not sure. Are you doing something here, sir?
I do the intro.
I'm not sure. What?
So can I get I'll do my cappuccino to go. My name is Brandon Bier, footwear designer based out of New York, and this is Kicks and Coffee. So in 2018, at a sneaker footwear design conference in DC, by way of Dwayne Edwards, I met this mysterious man. I had a lot of questions, he had answers, and he happened to be in New York City. Knew I had to connect. So from that point, I never looked back, and he's been a huge influence in helping shape my design process and my skill set. And I also had the chance to work with him through A&M Collective, which, you know, you've met a few members from the team already. So without further ado, Mr. Jeff Henderson.
Take this was good.
All right.
So Jeffrey Allen Henderson, I run or pretend to run creative agency collective called And Them. Brought a bunch of designers, photographers, a bunch of folks I just like working with, and anybody who wanted to get in some of the fields that we were interested in to the table, and we just took on projects. So now we're doing creative projects for other brands, created our own brand, 99 Products. Please go out and grab a pair, and looking to build a factory in Ohio.
So Jeff, tell us, you know, any particular thoughts on the footwear industry as a whole?
So I started in '96. People like Drew Greer, Mike Avini, Tinker Hatfield, they brought me in. I've watched it go through, I think, several versions of, I don't know, the economies, whether sports was important, fashion was important. I think now what's really interesting is it all has come together, and, like, to be honest, the business is important. So I think if you don't really grasp where the business is going, where your particular entity or your brand fits into that situation, it's really difficult.
You're somebody I look to and tap into a lot in my design career. So with everything going on right now economically, do you think that those impacts should affect the way that we consume?
I think you can watch big trend of, and I look at through trends. So in 2008, there was a housing crisis. A bunch of people went and stayed back at home with their parents. They started wearing what was in their closet, like that's what they could afford. And that brought on, like, 20 years later, thrifting is normal. So I think when you start looking at things through the lens of trends, we're going through another economic cycle. We're watching, I think, people live different lives of what they can afford, what they can do. I think they've also been through, like, a lot of information gathering. So everybody and their mom knows when a shoe was launched originally, who wore it. Like, I don't know that any of that is special. I think there's this economic reality that kind of what you need is important, but fast fashion has sort of had its run. I think people have gone through enough stuff where I think people now have a particular understanding of, like, I bought this and it lasted longer. I may have paid more, but it's more meaningful. And so just having a bunch of stuff, it's not as interesting.
You brought up a great point. In my time in the industry, I've seen shifts already, you know, from 2016 to, you know, 2020. It's just been a lot of consumption as a consumer of the product, and then the consumers that we're creating product for. We both, I believe, have responsibility in changing how that looks. So Jeff, like, from a footwear design perspective, or even a consumer perspective, what do you see the future looking like?
So I think, to your point, we've all gone through a lot of, I think, changes. I think the part that I look towards is, like, behavioral shift. I think some of those behavioral shifts happen because economic crisis, there's COVID, there's, like, a lot of things that could change how the world works. I think, one, everybody's sort of experiencing AI at the same time in different ways. Some people feel like it's ruining what they're doing. Some people feel like it's adding to what they're seeing and what they can execute on. So I think a lot of those conversations, I think, for people, they're gonna be built into, what are you really prepared for? And I think the people who are in charge of either making the product, creating the interaction and engagement, I think they're gonna be, to your point, responsible for how people, I don't know, adopt this behavioral shift. Again, watching people go from, I only buy new and everything I wear has to match, to thrift store shopping and being able to, like, a lot of those tools had to be built already. So a lot of, whether it's going to Goodwill or going to eBay, those things were kind of already there, but people weren't using them, I think, to their fullest. Now that you know that exists, and as a designer, if your only thought was, I'm gonna sell something in a boutique or a Foot Locker or do a collaboration, when the reality is half the things your consumer might buy might be thrifted. Now what do you do? How do you think about that process? They might think about, well, I actually go and cut and sew and build things on my own. What does that conversation look like? So I think you have to fully, I think, respect when behavioral shifts are like driving what you're doing, because I think that changes how you hold a pencil, that changes how you save in a file, it changes how you direct towards manufacturing, it changes how you go to retail.
You mentioned AI, which is a critical just topic at the moment, and obviously you've challenged our team to, I think a lot earlier in the stages of it, but challenge us to use it, interact with it, get comfortable with it. What are your thoughts on AI from a creative standpoint and concept creation to even driving a business? Where does AI, where do you see that taking form?
So for me, I look at it, I think early on when I started my career, it was a transition from people drawing with markers and pencils by hand to using Adobe Illustrator, like a different AI. And I watched how some people fought that and was like, that's not real design. And other people were like, it's just a tool. So for me, it becomes, one, it's just a tool that you kind of need to adopt, because if everybody else is using it and has that advantage, then you're behind, you turn into like an artist. And if that's not what you want to create, if you want to create product, which is different than being an artist, then you kind of have to use whatever tools kind of get you there faster. However, I think a lot of people, sometimes they get lazy because the tool does so much work for you. They think the tool actually did the thing for you. So I think AI, unfortunately, can give you like this false sense that, oh, everything's sort of done and everything's sort of created, when in fact, the reality is it's giving you 100 different variations on a thing. The reality is everybody else has those same iterations because they're all using the same tool. So no different than me drawing something in Illustrator. If everybody's doing something in Illustrator, they all tend to look alike till I figure out how to add my flair to it. So I think you kind of have to use AI, but you also have to realize everybody else has that same advantage. And for 15 minutes, you'll look fresh, but then you'll look like everybody else. And you have to quickly start using, like the thing I say is like, if you're gonna use AI, stick it through 13 AI tools, because no one's gonna stick it through those same AI tools in the same pattern and the same motion that you're gonna do it. And you're gonna have a reason every time you flip it and every time you change it, to the point no one knows which AI you use. And you're like, I went through 35 filters and I went through, and some of it I drew by hand. So now you can't tell the difference. Like that's the part when it becomes fun.
So to your point, we've been able to utilize a lot of different processes within our group. And even myself, I feel like using Illustrator and being able to sketch, being able to take it out of the program in the digital world and interact with it physically and tape some stuff up, put some stuff in, that has been sort of how I engage with it. So I couldn't agree more. I think it's going to be how designers, artists, and creatives sort of shape these tools by getting it out of what I call the algorithm, or getting it out of the process that everybody has, and then figuring out how do you shape it. And I think that's something that artists and a lot of creatives are going to have to figure out. So your voice is going to come through anyways. I love to take a step back from footwear now and, get a little bit into community. So as long as I've known you, you've been someone who's tightly woven into community, specifically Harlem. So just talk a little bit about how you merge your footwear background with community and purpose.
So I think it all kind of started. I mean, I grew up, my sister like pretty much directing a church she belonged to, my grandmother running the church she belonged to. So I watched those pieces, but it never really was specific to me until I was in college, and this friend I knew was like, come to this event, went to this event where they were helping youth. I was at Georgia Tech, and she was like, this is your little brother. Like, there was no conversation about it. This is your little brother. He lives across the street in Techwood Homes. You need to watch out for him. And she was just handing kids to different college students. Now, mind you, at this point, I'm 21 years old. And she's like, this is your little brother. DeMarco was probably 13. And DeMarco became my de facto little brother in Atlanta. And so I would like have to go pick him up. I would help him with his homework. I was showing up at parent-teacher conferences. I was 21. And at one point, his mother called me and said, can I come pick him up at the hospital, because he had gotten into like, he had stolen a golf cart from Georgia Tech's construction site. It flipped over and almost cut his spleen. So he was in the hospital. So he stayed with me after he got out of the hospital for like 2 days. Like, I'm 21 years old and I'm acting as like one of his parents. And so that just became, whenever people are like, oh, I don't know if I have anything to give. I was 21. I had no idea, but I had enough to give to like this kid who needed something. And so it has always been part of me to go like, I wasn't necessarily the kid in need, but I knew kids who kind of needed support. And I know that it was kind of important for people to see people like me doing things. And so when I got to Nike, starting working with like projects with Dwayne Edwards and E. Scott Morris, giving back to the community, and that started off working with kids through sneakers. And so when I got to New York, started doing projects, I was working with like different nonprofits. And so when it came to the point where I didn't have a regular job and I had more free time, two things happened. One, I joined the board of a public school, business and sports school in Hell's Kitchen. And then I just had a lot of work that just meant I can go give back and do things in the community. So to me, that always sort of felt like it was part of the job. It also was an experience like, if you're a creative and you want to give your talents or you want to build experience, going to people who will appreciate your talents, building websites, building brands, building graphics, like there's a bunch of nonprofits. You can go to a restaurant, you can go to your friend who runs a t-shirt brand, like all those places are nice. They may not need you, it may be too much work, but a nonprofit, like they need help, like lots of help. And so you can kind of give them your experience, and if they don't want it, whatever, it goes in your portfolio, you use it, you learn from it and grow. But I think those are the people who, for me, my version of giving back in community, it solves an experience problem, but it also is just giving back.
So, working with Business School of Sports and other nonprofits, restaurants, and a lot of stuff locally in Harlem, I've been able to be along that journey with you in some of those, projects and initiatives, and it's been incredible. It's incredible for me to learn, and for us as a group and team, kind of see that. And I think more people in corporate, which we've both been a part of, should understand the value in that. But I think it's very important for young creators to figure out how they can make a difference. And
I think it's also important, like in New York City, I think, because there's 8 million people in New York City, but people can disappear into their apartments and not talk to anybody. And COVID didn't help. Like, it was very much, you're sequestered and you don't know anybody here if you're not from here. And so nonprofits, small businesses, like they turn into your default family. So as we had kids in the city, when they went places, like they could walk into any of those places and they were just one of the kids and it was familiar. And I think if you don't create familiar homes in places where you're not from, that place becomes very difficult, or it's just work related. And then you kind of have a feeling like, I'm going to hang out with people I work with. The problem with people you work with, and not a bad thing, but the problem with people you work with is like, they're all the same age. Like you're all going through things together at the same time, where when you work with people where there's kids involved, when there's older generations involved, you get that sort of intergenerational living that you would get with family. So then you have someone who's like your aunt, your mother, your cousin, your grandfather, your nephews, your nieces, like you get those people, and then you actually start to grow as a person because you have all those experiences that are not just, we're all at the same age. So when work says we're a family, that's not what a family is. That's like, that's just your siblings. Like you're not really growing, like you experience stuff together, but there's no one who's like way older who's telling you something that you can listen to or not listen to, who you don't feel like, well, this is my boss, they're paying me. Or like, I'm just trying to get experience. Like these are people who are like, you should shop at this grocery store, or you should take your kids to the other side of the world, when you didn't ask them for that information, but they give you those details because that's what family does.
I did kind of want to understand, like you went to Purdue. I remember you talking to us about going to Purdue, and I wasn't going to ask this, but why not Purdue is like very centered around engineering. What was appealing about Georgia Tech to make that transition from Ohio down south? Yeah, I want to ask that personally.
No. So like my choice to go to Purdue was strictly, I had no plans really of going to college. Like it's not that I wasn't going to college, I hadn't thought about it. It had never really popped up in my head. And so I showed up at some free camp at Purdue, and somebody there said, engineers make sneakers. And I was like, oh, I love sneakers, I'll just be an engineer. Like literally that was like the end of the story. So I get there and they had made a statement that Nike was here, engineers make sneakers. So when I got there, they said also, and I didn't love school, like education, going through that process was not my favorite thing. I just wanted to work. And so they were like, oh, you can be a co-op student, which means you go back and forth to school and work. And I was like, sign me up and I'll just go work at Nike. Like I never said anything to anybody. I was just like, I'm gonna just go work at Nike. And they were like, if you get straight A's, you can go work anywhere. I'm gonna work at Nike, no problem. So I got straight A's. There were only, I think, 10 people of 500 engineering students who got straight A's and who wanted to be co-op students, and they were like, you have your choice. So I get there and I'm like, I wanna work at Nike. Professor Keith Hawks, he was like buzz cut, haircut, he was the head of engineering co-op program. He was like, we don't have Nike. We have this giant book of places you can work. You can pick any of them. I was like, I wanna work at Nike. He was like, Nike's not in the book, son. I opened the book to the first page, alphabetical order, AT&T. I was like, I'll work at AT&T. From that moment, I was done with Purdue. Like everything I had signed up for in my head wasn't there. Why was I staying? So then I was like, where do I want to go? At that time, this was January in West Lafayette, Indiana. It was like -3 degrees. I was like, I'm picking an engineering school in the South where it's warm. My man Brian Morgan was from Atlanta. I was like, Brian, I'm going home with you for spring break. Literally went home with him for spring break, transferred. Got to the South and was like, I do not understand these accents. But it's 65 degrees and this was probably what, March? I was like, we're never leaving here. So that's how I ended up at Georgia Tech. It had nothing to do with like actual education. It was literally, it was warm, AUC was there, like I was good.
So I went to the school in the South as well, but different experience when you have to go in the middle of nowhere. So it's a little different. But I love the South and definitely shaped a lot of my personality and sort of how I came up.
Well, I was also in the middle of nowhere in Indiana, but then when I got somewhere, I was in the middle of Atlanta.
Right.
So when I was in the South, I was in the middle of Atlanta. I was good.
Definitely. Yeah, Atlanta's a wonderful place. So tell us what's on your feet.
Well, so my feet is a prototype of 99 Products, the Carver, designed by our team, actually designed by Dream Henderson. Yeah, it's got move with meaning, little details on the back. This is a butter yellow color that we never actually launched. I usually like grab the things that no one ever wants and I just destroy them. It's a good way to do wear tests, but this is the Carver. You can pick them up at 99products.com, grab a pair. That's my pitch.
I like the shoes, but
there's no but. Like you just love the shoes. Nah.
The bag is just, I mean, come on.
So I literally believe head to toe, I've reached a point in my life, like if I don't know who made it, then it has to have something special. So I know the folks who made this hat. I know Joey who makes Urban Native. I mean, yeah, the pants are just random pants I have, but the bag is actually, it comes from a bag that I bought in LA that was a giant tote bag. And so I'd walk around it and it has a picture on it, but this one, I started making bags with my sons and it was just like giant totes, because when I get like small totes that are made for like small people, like they don't do the thing. If you live in New York, you go get groceries and you need like something giant. And so whenever I go find like really nice material, so there's this place in Queens, they actually work with Netflix movies. They get a lot of fabrics and materials because they do upholstery and movie sets, yada, yada, yada. And then they have to get rid of like extra. So we show up there one day because Xavier, my oldest son, is playing basketball down the street. So we walk in and they're like, everything over there is $1 a yard. And I'm like, $1 a yard? Like everything's $1 a yard. And so it was like really nice material. So we bought like maybe 30 yards of material, bulked it up in the house, and literally we're just making these large totes. So Elijah went on eBay, you can buy them, he just washed them thoroughly, and then we decided we're gonna put this upholstery with the belt and this giant tote for like large people.
Well guys, there you have it. Large totes, colorful sneakers, talking kicks. No coffee, but just me today. But shout out to Setapani for having us in there. So before we wrap up, I like to do a quick little segment I call Rapid Fire, where, Just some quick little thoughts and responses. So, first pair of sneakers.
Oh, that's a tough question. But first pair of sneakers that I really knew I had was a pair of Adidas turf shoes. Like, it was the cool thing when I was in 3rd grade. I needed turf shoes. My mother went and bought me some Adidas turf shoes. Walked around the carpet, there was like turf marks everywhere, but they were turf shoes.
All right.
You were waiting for me to say Jordan 3s or something like that.
I was waiting for you to say Jordan 4. No, I'm just playing. I was not waiting on you to say that.
I was in 7th grade when the Jordan 1s came out, so slow down. I had shoes before that.
All right. You don't drink coffee, so a favorite restaurant in New York City?
Oh, favorite restaurant is New York City. I can't answer that question. I know too many people who own restaurants. The place that is home, sorry, I tapped on the mic. The place that I call home is a place where I went and worked when I stopped working at a regular corporate job, and that's Il Posto Accanto, which all of y'all know, so I don't even know why I'm explaining it, because if you hear and you know that, I'm sure you've had conversation during the Il Posto Accanto. So,
yeah,
yes.
A product you wish you could have been in the development stage of. Doesn't have to be footwear.
That's a tough one. I guess when I think about things that I wish I could have watched go through in advance, how they started becoming a thing until it was a real thing, are probably more stories of storytelling. So like, I wish I could have been in the room when the idea of Star Wars came to be, because the idea of there being a trilogy before the Star Wars that everybody my age grew up with, there were other stories that they come back to. It was almost like, oh, we have other stories before this, but we're gonna start here in the middle.
Jeez.
And I'm like, I wish like I could think like that of, I'm gonna start in the middle. Like, it's one thing if like, oh, like stories about, I watched the product development of, here's the iPod to iPod Shuffle to Mini, yada, all these other things to the iPhone, and it feels like there was this path that went through, but in somebody's mind, it was like, we're gonna have an iPhone, this thing that does everything, or an Apple Watch, like those things. But to tell a story about like Darth Vader, who was like probably the greatest villain ever, and then knowing we're gonna have a story that makes Darth Vader feel like human and watch you like go through that, but you won't know that until we decide to make those films. Like, that to me is like amazing.
That's dope. That wraps up today's episode of Kicks and Coffee. We thank Mr. Jeffrey Allen Henderson.
Thank you for having me.
And without further ado, keep your kicks fresh, your coffee strong, your creativity flowing. Until next time. Jeff, thank you, man. I can't thank you for
Thank you for inviting me on the show. Thank you for inviting me, everybody on the show. There's so many people, there's like 25 people running this program. It's amazing, and they have one person running the whole thing. She's amazing, so all good.